Welcome to the Stop Down Photography Podcast, episode 66. I'm Scott Davenport. Today's topic is Know the Story of Your Photo. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm glad to be back with you for another chat about photography, this passion we share. And in today's episode, let's take one more step on our never-ending journey of photography. A cornerstone of photography is telling a story. Photographers are visual storytellers. The story could be a group of images, a photo essay, although in my work, and I suspect for many of you, the pursuit of a story in a single frame has a special place in our hearts, that standalone image that tells a story for a viewer. Events in my photographic life over the past 2 to 3 weeks have underscored the importance of knowing the story of an image, and that seemed like a good topic to share on the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, share it on social media with your camera club. If you're listening for the first time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. Current ratings help other photographers find out about the show. It is a Monday afternoon as I record this, and just a few hours ago, I was at the beach for an early morning walk, taking some photos. It was overcast. Overcast. That's a kind way of putting it. It was gray, with little to no character in the sky. The tide was low, the surf was calm. If there was a wave taller than 1 foot, that was an event, less than half a meter at best. And come to think of it, I didn't even notice any seabirds out there for their morning breakfast run. There's usually pelicans that skim across the water, no seagulls. So the mood of the beach, its atmosphere, was subdued. And it made sense to imbue the photos I would capture with that mood. There was no power or action to be seen, no flashy color to capture. It was a relaxed, calm time. And so I set out to frame up photos that told that kind of story. A lone rock that was dark with moss that contrasted with foamy whitewash lapping at the base of the rocks. That was a subject I spent some quality time with. Some longer sweeps of the beach that were calm, empty, and the only characters was the slowly rising tide on one side and the cliff faces on the other. And I have to admit, putting myself in that mind space, letting the mood of the location just really wash over me and my approach to the photos, it was relaxing and invigorating at the same time. But my larger point is this. As I framed up each composition, I knew the story I wanted to tell, a calm and peaceful one. No crashing waves, no powerful lines of rushing surf. Instead, gentle swirls of water almost caressing the land. Now, the second thing that put this idea of know your story in my mind is the prep work and the time I've been spending on this new video course called Story and Vision. I reviewed dozens of images from my library as prep work for the course. I wanted a cross-section of travel and landscape photos that were both examples of bringing a story to life and also representative of photos that you would likely have in your library as well. But anyway, as I reviewed these images, making selections for the course, I found not only a cross-section of photos for the video course, for the project I was working on, but also a cross-section of my ability to tell a story in a frame. Now, some of the photos had a clear story. The subject of the photo was obvious, well-framed, well-composed. The feeling conveyed was plainly apparent. Those are the good ones, right? Another subset of the photos had what I'll call a suggested story. There's a story there, but maybe it could have been told in a stronger way, perhaps compositionally or a different technical choice at capture time, like a different focal length or a different depth of field. It could have been a stronger story, or the story needs some nurturing and emphasis in post-processing to coax it out of the image. Coax isn't the right term. Enhance is more accurate. To enhance the story that's there, to make that story expressive. I put these in the good category as well. There's a story there, but it needs a little work. And something about those photos, it may have been a fleeting moment too, right? Something in the world unfolds, and there's that inner voice that tells us, hey, there's a photo here. You snatch a photo. You may not even be fully conscious at the time. You just instinctually know there's some sort of story here. There's something that caught your eye. So that's all goodness. And then there's this third subset, and I'll bet you know the class these fall into. Yeah, it's the what was I thinking bucket. I found plenty of photos in my library with no clear story. A trend I noticed is many of these were just shot too wide. There was foreground, midground, background, all with equal weighting in the frame. Now, we want foreground, midground, background for at least for a good landscape, but we also want a subject to anchor the photo, the center of the story. And this class of photos in my library, it just didn't have it. I was confused on where am I supposed to look. There's not one element in the frame that is like overweighted or centralized, whether it be in the center physically or there are lines leading to it. It just was confusing to a viewer, or at best, it was just boring. The silver lining for me, the more recent images in my work suffer much less from this problem. So with practice, measured thought in the field, self-reflection on your captures, reflecting on both what has worked and what hasn't worked, you can improve your eye for storytelling. Know the story of your photo. When you're conscious of it, strengthen that story in the field with framing and technique. And when you need to, enhance that story in the digital darkroom. A couple of bits of studio news. First is I feel like I'm coming to you from a new recording studio, and it's just because I rearranged the space that I do the recording in, but it feels like a new area, and hopefully the sound quality is all the same, because anytime you rearrange a room, the sound dynamic changes a little bit. I will see if there's anything I need to tweak in the recording stages of it. But if you notice something, please let me know. There's a contact button on every page of Stop Down Podcast. Send me a message and let me know if something sounds off. The second and arguably more important, more exciting studio news is the new video course, Story and Vision. It's available now. It's complete. It's posted. It can be immediately streamed after purchase. And the course's focus is all about visual storytelling, understanding the story that's in your frame, and then expressing that vision through post-processing to make that story as strong as possible. Story and Vision has 12 video chapters, and it runs just shy of about 3 hours of video training. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The price is $34.95 US, and I have a link in the show notes to the course description so you can read more about it. To celebrate the launch of Story and Vision, I have a special discount code for listeners of the Stop Down Photography Podcast. You can save 15% with the offer code STOPDOWN. That's STOPDOWN, all capitals, all one word. I have that in the show notes for you as well. So if you're out driving or for a run, you don't need to write it down. Just check the show notes, and that offer code is there, and it's valid through April 30th, 2021. I hope you do take a moment to check out the course. Like I said, I'm really happy with how it came out, and I'm excited to share it with you. Thank you, as always, to supporters on Patreon. I cannot express my gratitude enough to the members of the Patreon community. And by the way, Patreon members, you already have the Story and Vision course. The course hit the Patreon feed a couple of days before the public launch. It's one more way I can thank you for your continued support of this podcast and all the other free tutorials and articles I produce about photography. So if you've been away from the Patreon feed for a little bit, head on back there. You've got a gift waiting for you. And if you're interested in learning more about the Patreon community, joining us over there, check the show notes. You'll find a link. There are also several zero-cost ways to support this podcast. Check the show notes for the support link. Or if you're on stopdownpodcast.com, there's a support the show button on every page. It'll take you to a list of free, zero-cost ways you can support this podcast and keep the train rolling. One way is adding a review on Apple Podcasts. And honestly, that's a biggie. Ratings help keep the podcast on the radar so others can find it. The audience grows. It keeps the train rolling. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. I hope this gives you some inspiration, some fuel to understand the story of your photo, know that story, capture it as strongly as you can in the field, and when you need to, use your development tools in the digital darkroom, strengthen that story, express that vision, and get it just the way you want. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.